Hi here, we're live on Oliver's Lane in Melbourne. There are lots of, as you can see, lots of pictures, and we all love pictures. I love pictures. This one here is a bit surreal, isn't it? He's got a emu. Is that how you see an emu in the wild? Not quite what I think of when I think of an emu in the wild. The sunnies might just go over the top of it for me. What I'm talking about today to you is pictures. What sort of pictures do you have of God? Are they pictures of this guy that sits up in heaven that looks down on you with displeasure, with anger at anything you do that's out of the box? Or is it this old guy with a big white flowing beard, white flowing robes, and he looks and he just sits there? Sort of that passive sort of old guy that sits in the corner. Maybe a grandfather that isn't really involved in your life, just sits in the corner. Or do you see God as maybe this God that stands beside you, that is with you in every part of your life, maybe in your exams, maybe in your home, maybe when you're with your mates? Different pictures of God. The story that I want to share with you this morning is from Luke. Now, the stories of Jesus, he tells about Jesus wanting a God that threw parties. Now, for the Pharisees and the Jews that were actually listening, it was pretty amazing because they thought of heaven as separate to earth. But they thought that if they could get earth as close to what happened in heaven, then it would be like heaven on earth, and what very godly. And they thought in their world, the temple was the main part, a place where they could see God and see what his kingdom looked like. Now, all of a sudden, the guy that claimed to be God on earth, Jesus, starts saying about parties, starts talking about parties, and how that when a person who has wandered away, a sheep that had wandered away, there's 100, one wanders away. He throws a party when he finds the one that's wandered away. The last story is a great one. It's the story of a compassionate father. There's his son. Now, the son is just, he's only a young guy. There are two brothers. The younger son says, "Dad, I want you to sell up everything and give me my inheritance now." So he showed that he was actually didn't want to know the father, didn't want a relationship with the father. All he wanted was his dad's stuff. In those times, it was a bit rugged because it actually, usually the reaction of the father would have been to whack him over the head or chuck him out on his ear and make sure he wasn't a part of the family. But that's not what he does. The reaction of this dad is that he actually sells up half his property, sells it off. So the older brother gets 2 parts, he gets 1 part. So what this son was asking him is, "Dad, give up all your status, give me my inheritance, and I'm going." And he goes off, spends it, and as you know, he comes back because he thinks he's eating pig food in this foreign land, and he decides, "I'm going back to my dad because at least I'm going to get some food." And he wanders back in, expecting that he's going to be able to repay his dad by working as a paid servant. He wasn't going to live at home, wasn't going to get all the things that he needed. He was going to repay him. But the dad had other things in mind. And the dad, when he's a long way off, he runs towards him. Now, in like those old times, an elder never ran. But this guy had been watching the pathway, and he bolts down, grabs his son, puts a nice cloak on him, calls for the servants to get a signet ring so he can sign checks, and away he goes. And all of a sudden, there he is, this son. And then he does something that is very interesting, because he calls for the calf, the fatted calf, that was only used when they were throwing a communal party. So he invites all the village there, and they have this party. Meat was expensive, so they never had it normally. They killed the fatted calf, and then they had this party. And the thing that strikes me about this is this young person, this young son, had a picture of God. The picture that he had of God is that, you know what, God doesn't, he won't forgive me. But he's my provider, and it is a safe place. Family is a safe place to be, and in relationship. And he humbled himself and went back. And of course, there's a party. Now, in the same place, there was an older son that still owned 2/3. He was the one that got 2/3 of the inheritance. All of a sudden, he hears about a party. He's been out in the field, and he comes in. His picture of God was that as long as he did the right thing, as long as he did what was right, it would be okay. And in his first words, when the father comes out, he calls the father out of the party and says, "Why are you throwing a party and using my inheritance?" Because the reality was the father didn't own anything. So what he does is he says, "Hey, you know what? You've had everything right from the start. And yet I want you to celebrate with me, to have a party with me, because your son who was lost is now found and come home." Now, for the people that were listening, there were two pictures of God. One is that this guy comes home and the grace of God says, "You know what? I love you, and you were made to be in a relationship with God. You were made special. You are a created being who is beautiful. You are made for better things than the pig pens." But also, this older son only wanted his father's things as well. You know, sometimes if you're a Christian, all you want to do is get to heaven. You don't want a part of God, a relationship with God now. If you think all you want is your prayers answers and you want to get to heaven with the Father. He wants a relationship with you. He wants life to be created to where he can walk and talk with you. So at Gilson, we want our community to be a gracious one that loves and cares. And my encouragement to you is for you to know that wherever you go, this Father is with you, not to condemn, but to love and accept.